Preparing. See how long it takes. See, it takes, no, actually it takes more seconds than I thought it did. I remember it taking. Okay. It's almost done. Okay. We're live. Everybody stand by. Okay, we're broadcasting. I'd like to welcome everyone to the latest installment of our Connex Emerge Town Hall. We're so pleased to have you with us this morning. We'd like to introduce our guest moderator for today, FMA and RFMP Senior Facilities Manager for Adidas, Kirk Bedoin. Kirk?
Hello. Thank you, voice above. Honored to be here as the moderator for this month's town hall. Like to get started with introducing who we've got on this town hall. I'll start by mentioning we've got our Connex CEO, Bill Yannick, with us. He'll field any organizational related questions you may have today. Moving on to the panelists, I'll introduce them one at a time and kick it over to them for a quick intro on who they are and what they do. So first we have Jacqueline Frenzel from Onsite Incorporated. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Kirk. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Frenzel. I'm the president of Onsite and the secretary of the board for Connex. At Onsite, we're a facility management firm that specializes in everything cleaning related and handyman services throughout the US, Canada, and UK. We've been supporting our multi-site clients for 26 years. We're a certified minority woman-owned business with a separate Canadian company and offices throughout the US. This is my third year on the Connex board, and I'm honored to be sitting on this panel with my distinguished colleagues.
Excellent. Thank you, Jacqueline. Next, we have Karen Schreiner from Weiss Markets.
Hi, everybody. Nice to talk to you all today. And many of you probably already know me from my nearly 20 years at Rite Aid, so don't be confused by the logo. Weiss Markets is a super regional grocery store chain, largely based in the mid-Atlantic states. And so obviously we're an essential business and things have really been going great guns since the pandemic started. So I'm looking forward to talk to you all today.
Excellent. Thank you, Karen. Last but certainly not least, we have Tom Biocchi from Service Channel.
Hi there, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Yeah, I'm Tom Biocchi. Been the CEO of Service Channel for about 5 years now. I think many of you know us as a technology provider for FM and contractor solutions. It's been a crazy year. I feel like I'm a character in a video game, Escape from 2020, right? Hopefully we'll get out of this thing. And one of the things I like to be able to share today is we collect a lot of information and data based upon the work order trends and so forth across customers. And we're looking forward to sharing some of that with you all today.
Thanks, Tom. So before we start, I just want to let everyone know out there in the viewing audience, I'm sure we've got tens of thousands of people out there watching right now. We encourage you to submit your questions for the panelists. Just click the Q&A button down at the bottom. If you have questions for a specific panelist, make sure you note who that's for. And we will do our best to get through as many questions as you submit that time allows. So we'll start with the first question, which is pretty basic across all three people. How are you different pre-pandemic to now on a personal and a professional standpoint? So I'll start with Jacqueline on that one.
Thanks, Kirk. Well, professionally, I have a renewed focus on the health and well-being of my staff and our office environment. And personally, I am very proud to say I can now do Common Core first grade math because I've become an ad hoc school teacher. So pretty impressive.
Excellent. Excellent. How about you, Karen?
So one thing I'm hearing across a lot of the associations that I'm a member of is that a lot of us are really struggling with their personal, professional work-life balance, quality of life concept, right? We're all working from home, we're constantly available. And, with stress levels being as high as they are, probably just, I would say, both personally and professionally suffering from a higher level of anxiety trying to get it all done.
Definitely. Tom, you?
I have 3 grown kids, all of whom have returned to the roost to escape their particular pandemic episode. So what was, for a short period of time, an empty nest has now turned into a kind of a reality TV show with 5 roommates. So the house has gotten a little bit smaller. But on the professional front, look, it's been a really challenging year for everybody. I think the thing that keeps it going, though, is that we all are very collaborative and kind of getting through these challenges together. There's a lot of conversations going on. There's a lot of new ideas coming up. And as daunting as it is, I think the teamwork and collaboration have been pretty interesting so far. And we'll get out of this together.
Yeah, no, great call outs, great comments. This pandemic thing, it's definitely taking a toll. I miss being able to go outside. This is pretty rough. Tom, since we were with you, I'll just stick with you on this first question. You alluded to it a little bit on your intro. I know you track a lot of data. Is there any interesting data that you can share with everyone that illustrates how things have changed throughout the year?
Yeah, I got a couple of tidbits here. Bear with me a little bit. We track, obviously, in aggregate work orders by trade, by region, by vertical, and all that kind of stuff. The first 13 weeks of the year were great. The work order volume across the platform was about 20% from last year. All of a sudden, on about March 15th, we saw an immediate dip to 35% below last year for a period of about 10 weeks. I'm happy to report, though, that since about the second week of June, we're at 94% of what our January levels were. So even though a lot of locations aren't fully open, the work going on at them has recovered to almost where we were at the beginning of the year. And in aggregate, there are about 10% more work orders this year, including the dip, than before. A couple other quick things. As you might imagine, certain types of work orders have become more relevant this year. Grocery stores, plus 27% in janitorial work orders. Luxury retail, plus 25% in carpet cleanings this year over last year. Restaurants, plus 40% in kitchen equipment cleaning. Big box retailers, plus 26% in HVAC filter cleanings. And healthcare also up about 25%. So people are doing the right things, and it's a matter of kind of systematizing that kind of stuff to see where the trends go.
Very nice. Before we move on to another question, do Karen, Jacqueline, either of you have any comments to piggyback on that topic? I'm sure you have plenty of comments about work orders and spikes and changes. Karen?
Well, we actually benefit from having some internal technicians. So they were, in fact, the higher work order count because we were running them all over the place, including sometimes traveling 2 hours or more to get to a destination if we really needed to get a job done. And then, of course, we do rely on third-party suppliers as well. And I think we would say the same thing. I couldn't give you an exact percentage of increase from start to now, but definitely the same experience.
And as a cleaning service provider, I can say that we are at 85% of our pre-COVID numbers, and all of our customers have come back with their preventative maintenance in addition to their COVID-related sanitizations that need to be happening. So it's a good market when you're in cleaning, but I know a lot of things have certainly dipped. So
yeah, I would imagine there's probably a spike in that area. What did you say? You were at 80% of where you were pre?
Yeah, we're at 85%, and it would be closer, but we had a couple retailers who have now filed for bankruptcy, but everyone else has come back online. And that's, again, with PM services, although modifications to those, but those are still ongoing in addition to their emergency or as needed services related to the pandemic or civil unrest.
Great. Okay, thank you. I'll move on to a question for Karen. What are some of the biggest legal challenges caused by the pandemic activities?
So as senior real estate attorney at Weiss, I'm fortunate to be involved in a lot of launches of new programs. And the pandemic really triggered a reaction. There was an avalanche of new software as a service agreements, almost any number of remote type work processes that we had not already implemented. We also had to become Department of Labor specialists very quickly, related to hiring third-party suppliers, even to do things as simple as the fleet management, distribution. We run our own distribution centers, and just trying to ramp up and have enough employees, and then to make sure we're not going afoul of all the temporary rules and guidelines put in place. And I'm sure a lot of suppliers had to deal with it too, as part of their actual service agreements and their SLAs and such. So really, it was just an avalanche of new work, quick become a specialist, maybe not as relevant for this group, but just things like price gouging, constant responses back and forth to the attorneys general of the different states, and sometimes as silly as over like maybe a penny. And it takes hours and hours to address those and get them closed out. So we were very, very sensitive to the responses and timeframes that we needed in the pandemic period. And I'm not going to say it's over yet, but the bulk of it seems to be, we're going on the other side. So.
Thanks. And as an attorney, obviously that was a question queued up for you, but Tom, Jacqueline, any other comments you'd like to chime in on that area, or is this pretty much focused on Karen?
I think it's all focused on Karen.
Yeah, I think she's got a handle on that.
Yeah.
I'll argue with you if you don't agree with me.
Cool. Now I'll move over to Jacqueline. Before I do, reminder everyone, keep those questions coming down below. Hit that Q&A button. Jacqueline, how have the ongoing and varying lockdown, social distancing, and quarantine periods affected the FM industry supply chain?
It's interesting because we often think of the supply chain as being for products and not necessarily services. Yet in this pandemic period, we're in a constant state of limited availability of all things tangible and service related. Primarily, I've noticed that throughout our US clients, we've seen a strain on the service providers for handyman, for cleaning, for board ups, and especially as things fluctuate with the high demand due to like pandemics, outbreaks in certain states, or civil unrest that's popping up. So, unlike the products, or actually in addition to the product limitation, we have an aging workforce. And when you have service providers at the local level that we depend on as third party or management firms who are now no longer interested, willing, or capable of working because they are too old, they fall into that category, they're too scared to go out and work. It really starts to limit your supply, yet the demand is high and it's still there. So pre-COVID, you would not likely see lengthy wait times for services to be completed. A store might be down in the evening, services are completed and they're reopened the next day. And I'm not saying it goes for all cases, but I'm seeing an increase in stores being closed for multiple days because there are no service providers, or the backlog for services is growing. So in addition to PPE gear and product availability that's limited in certain areas, you have that when it comes to the human collateral and services as well.
Yeah, Jackie, we're by the way, we're hearing a ton of that too. Either when you're coming out of this thing, either your service provider is backlogged for weeks and weeks because they got thousands of stores to help reopen, or they may simply not be there anymore because 10 or 12 weeks went by, there was no work.
Yeah.
They may have suffered financially as well. So we're hearing a lot more of, I need to put together my provider network again. I need to reassess who I have doing the work. I need to get back in priority line again.
There's, never been, now all of the conversations we had prior to this happening about making sure that we have a diverse workforce, that we have the pipeline for it, we're now feeling that strain. And if you didn't have a robust service provider network beforehand, your company is likely not doing well with getting, services, and you might be jeopardy as well. So it's certainly a strain, and it fluctuates. We saw June was probably our heaviest month. July was slightly less, but in certain areas throughout the country, it's certainly popping up. I don't see it in Canada as much, or UK, but certainly throughout the US.
Good call. Karen, anything to add to that? Are you seeing any of those examples of with your partners of backlog or
You know, I haven't heard a lot of complaints about backlogs, but again, knowing that we have also internal resources, right? We have a pretty healthy employee base, and I don't mean that in the pandemic virus infected way. I mean, we have a solid employee base. We aren't suffering from not having enough employees. So we've basically been closing early, and we have employees who are doing a lot of the cleaning, but really in the beginning, launching that and getting them trained to do it properly. And then, you know, installing some construction project items like sneeze shields at the checkouts and things like that. Once we got a lot of that initial work done, we've been pretty steady and timely. But if we were relying on strictly third party right now, I would be echoing those same sentiments.
Cool. Great, thanks. Bill, we haven't had any questions for you. I don't know if you wanted to chime in on any of the topics we've had or just comment about how wonderful we're doing so far.
It's been a fantastic panel so far. It is amazing to hear. Well, as I was taking some notes here, preparing for the end of this when I have to talk, we're 20 weeks into this, which is just crazy when you think about, you know, I talk to people every day on the daily grind, and it has become a grind. We think that we thought this was a month or 2 months. It's now 20 weeks in, and kind of hearkening, without getting too deep into the FM stuff, if you aren't robust as a company and with your supplier base, with your relationships, it eventually will wear out, because this is a real marathon and it's not going away anytime soon.
Great. Thanks, Bill. And segueing onto that, I'm going to go into this next question. You talked about it being 20 weeks. Just go to each of you, and can you share some positives from the past few weeks, if there are any? And let's start with you, Tom.
I think it's tough to talk about silver linings in the middle of all this stuff, but there's a couple of things that I've noticed, right? One, in speaking to a lot of our customers, one is I think the acknowledgement of the importance of what we do as an industry has never been any higher. I think the essential nature of the facilities and service provider industries we deal in has risen to a level of visibility and essentialness, and kind of, you know, how many of you out there never met your CEO before, and they're probably got you on speed dial right now? What the hell is going on in my store? When am I going to open, et cetera? So I just think that the level of importance of what we do has never been more important and has never been more visible. That's a double-edged sword, obviously. The second thing, and it's kind of a, I don't know if it's a good news or a bad news, but evolution in the industry has rapidly accelerated. The people who were weak, to Jackie's point earlier, have declared bankruptcy. They were on a track anyway, right? And they're going to make room for new entrants coming in. It's going to make the industry healthier overall. There'll be a little bit of extra capacity for a while. It will fill its way in. And on the other hand, those of whom were innovative have done some remarkable things. And I think the industry has kind of accelerated in that front a little bit too. So a little bit of Charles Darwin moving a little bit faster. And I think all of us are going to be a little bit more kind of important to our organizations going forward.
Great. Thanks, Tom. How about you, Jacqueline?
You know, I mirror a lot of the same sentiments as Tom. And, you know, coming from the cleaning industry, I can't say that janitors have ever had an elevated status. And now you're wanting to see them in the stores. You want that heightened visibility. And it's something I'll comment on later, but it's certainly important. And so now they have an important role to play. And I love seeing that, because I feel like they're finally getting, you know, the recognition and the respect that their profession has, you know, always had, but it's now coming through the masses. But I've also seen, you know, a heightened need for advanced technologies and automations. And I think that that's going to be very interesting and very exciting for our industry. And I think Connex can play a really big role in connecting all those dots for the multi-site FMs and the supplier side. So yes, I think this is really, like you said, it's really throwing us into a tailspin, but it's going to elevate us at the end. So,
excellent, thanks, Karen. Any positives for the last couple weeks?
Well, these two hit the nail on the head by, you know, and from the supplier perspective, I agree completely. And on the retail perspective, I think the positive that's coming out of this is that for the last decade, retailers have been slowly whittling away scopes of work to do the bare minimum that the public would accept. And, you know, whether you agree with it personally or not, it's been done, and it was been done in cost saving measure in order to kind of keep the bottom line healthy, keep the company, you know, afloat. and financially stable. And so now we're really seeing that resurgence of probably what was needed all along. It's just that everyone scaled back from it. So I like seeing the push forward for sanitization. I'm fascinated with all the new viricides that are out, the microbial applications. And, you know, I get these materials in to read, and I'm sorry, it's like a novel to me. I'm like, oh, I cannot wait to read more about this and how it works. And don't put too many formulas in there for me. I'm not a chemist, but it's exciting to read what it's going to do. And then I think about how it's going to save time and energy at the store level so we can stay open longer and service customers. You know, again, it's exciting to be in the food industry. It has a totally different level of, you know, sanitation and concern for our customer base.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, my only highlight is I saved a bunch of money on my car insurance, but that's about it. Moving over to another question. It looks like there was, in the New York Times, there was an article about retail chains abandoning Manhattan. And they're wondering, what do the Connex and professionals here think of this dramatic potential departure, as it may affect other cities in similar fashion? Interesting questions. Anyone have a thought on that, or comment, or has anyone seen that article?
I haven't seen the article, but it's hard to believe that long term that's sustainable. I mean, there's such a hotbed for all these other countries coming over. It's one of the places most visited in our, if not in our country. So having a store or having anything to showcase there is necessary long term. I can't imagine. I haven't seen the article, so I'm not exactly sure what it's referring to specifically, but I can't imagine that sustaining long term. Sounds like clickbait almost.
It's interesting. There's this these vacancies are going to create opportunities where, you know, smaller brands, pop-ups, you know, temporary locations. You don't have to lock into a 10 or 15-year lease, right? You can come in and set something up temporarily because the landlord will allow that type of thing. I think it's going to create some vibrancy with new brands and direct-to-consumer brands. You see them popping in and doing things all over the place they're non-traditional in terms of retail. So I think it might add to some stimulation of the market, actually.
Thank you for teeing that up for me, because that was going to be my comment, really, is that you take a market like New York City, and I'll go back to my former days at Rite Aid, where we had a very large store base there, and the rents are very high, and the reimbursement, all your, you know, CAM costs are very high, and it just makes your operating margin so much smaller, and then you're regulated to death. Right? You can't do services between this hour and that hour. You have to put your trash on the street on this day at this time. You have to sweep every day between this hour and that hour. And, you know, if you don't do it, you get fines. And sometimes the fines are greater than what you can even make. So, you know, this was overdue, this kind of market correction in New York City, I'm going to say, and that's going to be my personal opinion. Market correction overdue. And I'm going to predict what Tom says is correct. We're going to see shorter term leases at better rates and get folks in there, you know, provided they comply with whatever use restrictions might be in the building. But you're going to see some shorter term, some pop up, and give some other folks an opportunity to operate there.
Do you think that that's going to trickle down throughout the rest of the country, meaning a kind of a reform when it comes to your rates for leases and the longevity of those, and what that's going to do for the rest of the country?
Mm-hmm.
I think mall owners are in the same place. All the mall owners are going to get the same problem, right? You read that somebody's talking to Amazon about using, you know, certain locations for distribution centers. I think the malls got the same problem.
Yeah. Your large mall operators are already working on programs to try to retain the store base to the best of their ability. And, you know, one of the ways that they're doing that is working out, you know, some rent reduction programs. So, you know, and for your clients who are out there, you know, contacting you and saying, you know, we're struggling, you know, just feel free to educate them even on not being shy about reaching out to a landlord and saying, please help me. I get to wear both hats, so I'm lucky that way, I guess.
Excellent. Bill, you have any comments?
Well, I would just echo that it's even like when you're dealing with doing business in China, the market is so immense on the two coasts. They have that now there's a storm over both of them, but at some point business will come back. It just has to, because that's where the people are.
Gotcha. Thank you. Got another one in here. It's more of a comment. semi question, and I'll cue it up for everyone, but it's more about someone commenting on the positivity out there during this time is huge, and talking about whether people are open to those discussions for those new opportunities. So since we've got a diverse panel here on both sides, I'll just kind of kick it over to you. Are you seeing that people are receptive to sharing time when you're reaching out? Or Karen, on the other side, do you find that you have time in these trying times to respond to probably the flood of new business inquiries? So I'll start with you, Karen.
Yeah, I would say, I think I make it a point to try to respond whatever the issue of the day is. Folks are reaching out. They want to learn more about, how they can help, or how maybe Weiss can help. And we communicate with everyone, even if the answer is no, I don't need you right now. I can't help you right now, or we're not the right fit. So just keeping the communication channels open, because what exists today isn't what's going to exist tomorrow. I think we've all learned that a lot in the last several months.
How about you, Jacqueline?
I really shifted my focus when the pandemic hit. And so internally, it was about how we can support our existing client base and making sure that the communication was there, that we were pivoting and adjusting. And I'm sure a lot of other service providers can feel like they were busy, constantly busy, but spinning your wheels. You didn't feel extremely productive. And that's kind of evened out. And now as we're getting, through week 20 of this, you start to adjust and say, okay, what are the long-term goals for the company? What are the long-term goals for not just our existing client base, but for potential clients out there? And I think those conversations are starting to happen. While I haven't traveled yet, and I will be soon. All of that travel is for existing clients, and I haven't seen a lot of new client need out there. But that doesn't mean that it's not coming, and that as we prepare for the 2021 and beyond, that it's not going to open back up. But I think it's going to be slow, and I think for us, again, it's been a real eye opener on focusing and making sure your customer service is top notch and you're providing what you can to your client base.
Excellent. How about you, Tom?
It's funny. We have two main offices. One is in New York City in Middle Manhattan, and one is in the Bay Area. So we couldn't find any two places that had more traffic. So everybody's gotten 2 hours back in their day for the most part, right? Whether it's an engineer or an executive or a salesperson, everybody's got time now. And also, I think to everybody's point, what we had assumed was the plan pre-April is not necessarily the plan for the future. So I think everybody's got a lot more open mind to partnering opportunities, companies we never knew of before who we're talking to about combinations that we never would have considered before. All of a sudden, we got to have that conversation because we actually don't know what the plan is for next year. So I think absolutely it's shaking a lot of people.
Excellent. Yeah, I would touch on that. I kind of have my own personal little agreement with myself that I try to respond to every inquiry, whether it's an email or a voicemail. I've talked to some of my peers, and they share that they obviously get a higher volume than I do. And so sometimes they can't get to everyone, but I would just give a tip of the hat to any of the FMs out there that do try to respond to everything. We're all in this together, and it's just common courtesy to respond to our vendor partners out there, and then of course to the vendors out there for responding and connecting and communicating in that professional manner, as opposed to the every other day email blast, even though you might have already responded. So it's great when it's all working correctly. I'll also jump in with a question for everyone. It says in the online Connex community, PPE, personal protection equipment, sourcing remains a strong topic of interest. What are your companies doing to support gathering these items for your stores or customers? Let's just start with Jacqueline on that one.
I mean, my answer is going to be very, very short. We're not doing much. We're a third party. We're a management firm. So where I provide support is having connections with other suppliers who provide that information or those products. And so we partner with them, and we'll get our customers engaged. We'll shoot them towards Connex and their online community for such, but we have not, it's not our wheelhouse. We're not good at distribution when it comes to products or supplies. So we've kind of left that to the professionals, and we point in the right direction and make those connections as needed.
Excellent. How about Tom?
Yeah, this ties into my last comment. This is kind of interesting. Just last week, we got a call from a company, probably no one's ever heard of them, called healthequip.com. Healthequip, all one word, healthequip.com. They didn't exist before April 14th. Microsoft called them and said, could you set up an online marketplace where people could donate PPE, and local and regional hospitals that can't afford it could get it from you, like an online little mini Amazon thing that's CDC approved and stuff like that. So they've done this for a couple of months, and now it's like, well, there's other people that may need PPE. We have this little online marketplace. So we're talking to them about an integration into our supply manager little module where people could go in and create a work order. I need masks, or I need some, cleaning supplies. It's not in our wheelhouse either, but it's one of those calls that came up where I never would have expected a call like that, a couple of months ago. And these guys came out of the clear blue sky.
But that's how you pivot, and that's how you perform in the new, and whatever the reality is. And so, and that's how Service Channel will continue to thrive, because you have the platform and the infrastructure in place to be able to add that type of click and order type situation. So that's fantastic. That's fascinating.
These guys are very interesting guys, right? They very clearly differentiate themselves against like an Amazon, where half of the PPE is quasi-fraudulent, right? Or not standards, right? And they believe that being CDC approved and having the right supply chain, they can supply the people that can't afford it, right? Or the people that can't get to it. Big companies are going to get to it, right? The small and medium companies.
Karen, any comment on this topic?
So I'm lucky enough that both companies that I've worked for in a large retail sector have had an entire procurement department. So we also have in our own distribution center, our own fleet, and in control of our own destiny, so to speak. We had some really fantastic category managers. The minute all this stuff hit the soil here in the US, they actually thought enough in advance to get some extra orders into the distribution center. So we do supply our store personnel with the equipment they need. And we actually experienced a shortage for a short period of time. We're on the resale side, not on the for store use side. And so at this point, I think, again, we're over that bubble, and we're on the other side where we have a pretty steady stream of supplies. And our suppliers did partner up with us in order to make specification changes so that we could comply with cleaning orders, and then ensure that we got the products in. So just good partnerships, like what Tom was saying, just being able to adjust, good partnerships, like Jacqueline said, pivoting to meet the needs. And those are going to be the partners that we go back to in the future, not the ones who apportioned our supply, to other people, even though our agreements with them say that they can't do that. So there's my legal aspect of the day. What does your supply agreement say? Make sure you know.
Good call out. Bill, any comments? Is anyone reaching out to Connex directly on connecting people with other people and looking for answers?
Well, certainly on our Connex communities on more general issues, but on PPE, hopefully you've seen one of the adjustments we made to our website is right on the front page. We have our PPE link in our PPE survey where people are able to offer up a little bit similar to the idea that Tom said, but we also have that at Connex, and it's been enormously popular and very useful to our members. We've had that up and running really since the first couple weeks of this. Back to the Connex communities is one area that even predates me. I know our Prism Exchange way back when was very heavily used. It kind of went away. The platform really didn't work, but now we're bringing that back with the Connex communities. And hopefully, if you're watching out there and if you're interested in those communities, we have more and more usage each day. And Alex Sanchez on our team is managing that, and we're going to continue to move that forward.
Great, thanks, Bill. Appreciate that. Got another question. This is specifically to Karen. Looks like the question is, since you've worked at both Rite Aid and Weiss, they just want to know what the biggest differences are as far as facilities maintenance.
Sure. And it's a fair question, and I get it a lot, actually. You wouldn't be surprised to know that. It's probably the number one question I get when I talk to people. And again, it's transitioning out of the facilities management role and into legal. I'm still like knee deep in it on a regular basis on the procurement side, reviewing scopes of work, reviewing the RFP details that come in to award. And so, so I have a lot of involvement still in terms of like specifications, scopes of work, who we want to hire and why. A lot of that is the same across the board. So that's the same from Rite Aid to Weiss. A lot of the same motivators dictate the decisions. But in terms of how the FM actually is very different between the two, Rite Aid was solely outsourced. We did not have internal technicians to perform anything. Gosh, when I was there 20 years ago, they did their own floor care cleaning program, and it was hit and miss depending on the skill set of the store manager. So other than that being an internal cleaning function, the internal cleaning wasn't really anything extensive. So if store staff didn't do it, basically it didn't happen. In the course of the 20 years that I was at Rite Aid, we developed a lot of outsourced programs, and then at least we could assure the work was being done. Quality assurance programs and the different modules like Service Channel and other suppliers offer in their work order management systems. And so at Weiss, we really don't have that as much. We do rely on third-party technicians, obviously, to do larger projects and such, but we do have internal technicians who go out and take care of HVAC issues, change ceiling tiles, do some basic repairs and maintenance around the store. And so that, that's just a different model for us. And then we actually enter like a work ticket for the internal person to go and respond so that it can be tracked, so we can make sure that they're actually taking care of it. And so I see a lot of those communications back and forth. And so there's some similarity in terms of the accountability, but not in terms of who's doing the work.
Thank you. Another one here. This is all encompassing with all the stuff that's happening in the economy. A lot of Chapter 11 filings. A lot of people finding themselves out of work. FM's out of work. Just looking for just a kind of an overarching question and comments about how our industry recovers and when it recovers. So, Jacqueline, any comments on that?
It's such a broad question, and I know that we're going to go through a we're going to evolve. And so there's going to be a need to hire. There's going to, even though if we move towards efficiencies and technologies and automations, like Tom had said earlier, it's going to open it up for new companies to emerge, more companies to grow, might have a lot more distribution type positions available within the FM community. So I think that right now there's a bit of a panic because the economy is in such a state that it's fluctuating. We're unsure what's going to happen long term. We have the elections coming up. So there's a lot of unknowns, and companies are trying to hold on to and reserve as much of their capital as possible. And unfortunately, it's human collateral that goes. But I don't think long term that's going to be sustainable, because the FM team is necessary to make sure that these sites are prepared for whether it's internal staff operations or customers. And so I think that we'll start to see a resurgence, even if that means that we're going to have to elevate ourselves and become a bit more educated and learn new types of ways of doing things. But I think it's going to come back.
Tom?
Yeah, I totally agree. The target is still moving now, but there's no question the bar is getting higher, right? The delivery, the outcomes that an FM department needs to put together in terms of not only cleanliness and quality, but also much more stringent cost requirements, right? Save more money, but make it cleaner, make it better, make it all like it's going to be a lot harder. And I think the talent's going to have to, and investment's going to have to go back into the function somehow, whether it be on the inside for an FM team or on the outside in those trade specialties that help make this happen. I just see, I agree. I think it's a temporary thing, and you're not going to get to the place you want to be later on, that higher bar, unless you invest in it.
Good call out. Karen, thoughts?
I like what Tom said there too. One of the things about making sure you have a robust staff, and I'll make no joke about it, I really like the Weiss model where we have internal technicians, because they have no competing interest. So I don't have to convince you that my store is more important than someone else's store in order to get you to show up, because the name of the company is on your shirt already. So it makes the job a little bit easier in that respect, but the accountability factor. So anyone who out there in retail is considering perhaps going to that model, certainly reach out. I think there's benefit to having a hybrid model, and I really like the way our Weiss is doing that right now. And you certainly can balance the third-party suppliers with the specialty with some of the internal items that you just need to have done right now.
That was going to be my question to you, Karen, was do you outsource anything or is it all internal?
It's not all internal. So depends on the skill set of the technician sometimes that we hire. So they'll do general cleaning, general simple installation. So like they installed the sneeze shields and guards in the stores. They do some of the minor construction projects that don't require special permits or any kind of special certification to do that work. Some of them might do minor electrical if they're trained in it, and they all do a little bit of plumbing. And so everybody just has a slightly different skill set, and we sort of customize the work we expect them to do based on that skill set.
And so mostly like refrigeration, mechanical, that sort of thing you outsource. But do you think this model is something that's sustainable as Weiss, possibly grows and comes out of a regional market but goes, nationwide? Not that that's their plan, but talking for other FMs that might be on the call and her say, that couldn't work for us because we're nationwide. Is that something that you believe is a sustainable for taking your model across the country?
Yes, but you're absolutely right in that. I'm sure that there is a triggering point where that model might become not manageable, depending on where the store base is located, whether we can get the technicians there efficiently, whether we have enough store base to justify sending them out, et cetera. And then of course your third-party suppliers would always be the supplement, just like it is today, and maybe different markets start to have a slightly different model. And we talked about that at Rite Aid for years, that maybe stores in areas where we were very concentrated, like Detroit, Manhattan, Philadelphia, Baltimore, maybe they had a hybrid model while everyone else was third party, just depending on density. So it'll be a trigger point. I wish I could tell you all where that density factor might lie, but I don't know that right now.
Cool. Coming down the final stretch here, got another question that I think all our thousands of viewers would probably like to hear more about. How are you tackling the work from home burnout with your teams? And besides Zoom, what else can we be doing? So let's start with Tom.
The Zoom happy hour thing, that was cool for about 2 weeks, right? It's just not that much fun drinking alone with other people virtually on a thing. It's just not that good, right? We do a couple things. First of all, we set up a theme. Once it started, we didn't know how long it was going to last. So we said, okay, the theme is cool heads, warm hearts, and clean hands. If you can keep a cool head, have some empathy, and wash your hands, you get through this thing. That was number one. Then the second thing is we send an email out to the whole company every day. It's typically because we're not in a room to know what happened that day. So we kind of give the news cap of what happened that day in the company. If we don't have any good news, we put a joke or some recipes or something that people read every day. It's kind of a newsletter thing. And the third thing that I just found that one of our employees brought up, and you should all try this, there's an app called Donut. It's literally DONUT, donut.com. It randomly connects two people in the company who don't work together. And they got to talk to each other for 30 minutes or 45 minutes. And you'll get an invitation on your calendar, a donut invitation, share a donut with so-and-so. It's like, I don't know what they do, but you got to talk to each other about what you do and, and especially with the remote workforces, it's turned out to be kind of fun.
It's pretty interesting. I'm going to make a note of that.
Donuts.
I like it.
Jacqueline, want to comment?
I like donuts, yeah. I have the luxury of having a small team, and for the most part, we communicate that we've blurred the lines of, what stays in the office and what goes home. And then when you start working from home, those lines become even more blurred. And we've created a family-like atmosphere because of, and it was already there, but it's become even more so during the pandemic. And so we we have our structure in place where we meet every week and we see each other's faces, but I talk to my team. I text my team. We have colloquial type conversations, and we're very much engaged. And I'm glad to say that we bought a new HQ building in the midst of all of this, and we've moved into a space that's about 3 times the size of our old office. And beginning in September, we're going to start rotating people back in, and it's necessary because, like Tom said, we're burnt out from the Zooms. We're burnt out from, the texting. It's time to start seeing each other's faces, and even if that starts out slowly, that's okay, but it's necessary. So as I sit here right now, there's 4 other people in the office, socially distanced, and I think it really helps morale to start seeing each other.
Definitely. Karen?
We actually use the Teams application here. So it's easy just to pop a quick note over to somebody and get a quick answer. And I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus, but we all know that we have people in our organization who aren't as good at staying engaged and communicating using some of these tools. And it's a little frustrating. We don't use text so much. Cell phone calls, the traditional communication methods are clearly the most popular, and email. But I think trending towards using some of these more friendly applications where you can actually click on your video. A lot of the meetings I'm on nowadays, I basically ask everyone to turn their video on. And I said, I don't care if you didn't brush your teeth and wearing a ball cap. Just, let's just communicate like human beings as if we were sitting across from each other at the table. And so that's nice. In terms of the department, I'm actually on the employee engagement committee, and every month we put out like this newsletter because we started out in February with an on-site meeting for the whole team, and we have our own ice cream plant, so we brought ice cream over for everybody and had food, and that was very popular, of course. So now we're just basically doing a newsletter, but we solicit communication from the group and ask everyone to submit something that someone did so we can share it with everybody. And then we put a little PowerPoint together. We tell people some of the events that are going on, projects that were completed. And I think this next month, we're actually going to ask everyone to have a virtual meeting with us, because we are experiencing that some people feel very disconnected. So the opportunity to have that virtual meeting and kind of draw everybody back in, I think. And we might, I don't know, dance the Macarena in the middle of it. We haven't worked out the details yet. But we need to make it a little bit fun. It can't just all be information that we're throwing at people. So, yeah.
Karen, I think you hit on something that, and it's something that I strive to do during each meeting as well. It's hitting on the wins. Since we're in such a, everything we hear on the news, through social media, everything can be so negative. And so what I do every meeting that we have is highlight the wins that we're having. Has somebody had a win? How small it is, and then to recognize that with the entire team or those who are on that, it's big for morale and keeping people engaged and giving an opportunity to let somebody shine during what seems like such a dark time.
Absolutely.
It's a great. Bill, do you want to comment on that?
Well, I've been waiting to compliment Karen on talking about people wear their company name on their shirt. I waited all day for that. Thank you, Jen. Yeah, at Connex headquarters, we use Microsoft Teams. We've gone in and out of the Zoom happy hours. I do think it's important to try to keep some sort of schedule, and we've tried to do that week to week, and that's still important because the lack of structure throughout the day when everyone's spread all around. But fortunately for us, we've been able to start to work our way back in the office, and that's been a real godsend. It is time. And I anticipate after Labor Day, we're going to become even more engaged in person here at the office.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Bill. And nice segue. Jacqueline talking about hitting on the wins. I think I'll throw this one out there. And this is for the newer members or viewers out there that aren't familiar. What has been a Connex success story for you? Where did you find that extreme value? So rather than calling on someone, does someone have an answer queued up? I don't want to put you on the spot if you haven't thought of one yet. Tom, was you raising your hand there?
It's real simple for me. I'm not from this industry. I don't know anything. And I'll never forget the first day we invested in Service Channel. Happened to coincide with a show. I don't know where it was. I think it might have been in Columbus or something. And I literally went there. I went booth to booth every day. And I walked away with an appreciation for things. And to this date, many of you on this call and on this screen have been kind enough to try and educate me to get me up to speed for some of these things. But to me, it's been a complete high-speed learning experience, and I appreciate everybody in the industry doing it to bring us on board.
Excellent. Karen, Jacqueline, either of you want to jump in?
It is a high-speed industry. I agree with you completely. It's either jump on the bus or get out of the way.
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, my story was very similar. I was reflecting on this over the last couple of days, and, you know, I realized that Connex really offers a platform and a community, and it allows you to foster those connections. And honestly, I've got a very thoughtful network of mentors that I couldn't have succeeded without them. I have extremely deep friendships and relationships within industry. And when I started, I was new to this industry as well. I came from construction. I came from legal. I came from something completely different. And so coming in, I was a marketing manager, and 10 years later, I'm president of the company. So without those relationships and mentors and relationships I built I walked in with people, you know, basically welcoming me to it, and that hasn't ever waned. And so, yeah, without Connex, without those relationships, who knows?
That's great. Yeah, I'll mimic that as well. You know, starting into retail, you know, many years ago, and then getting involved with Prism, now Connex. It was just such a amazing amount of opportunities that I didn't have when I was working on the corporate side, still in facilities, but, you know, joining committees and then being able to write, you know, an article or be quoted for an article, and then write a white paper, and then, you know, write some best practices. And then, oh, you're at the conference. Oh, do you want to moderate a session? Oh, can you speak at a session? Oh, would you like to serve on the board? Just so many opportunities that aren't specifically related to my day-to-day job. But by giving those opportunities and taking those opportunities, they certainly made me a much more well-rounded and valuable facilities manager. So I would agree. Love the community that we have. And with that, it looks like we're coming down to probably only having time for one last question. Before I kick it over to Bill to field that question, I'll take a moment to say thank you to my fellow board members and panelists here. Thank you, Bill. Thank you to my wardrobe staff and the hair and makeup team. Did an amazing job. I don't even think you guys can tell my hair is a little thinning. They just did a great job. So I will kick things over to Bill. And can you give us an update on the state of the association?
Thanks, Kirk. And what a great thing to try to wrap up here in a couple minutes, right? But thanks, Jacqueline and Tom and Karen and our Connex HQ for being part of this. So real quick, when we started this, the board has heard this, my team has heard this, really three different things we looked at as we came into the pandemic. We wanted to stay agile as an organization. We want to be transparent because right now everyone is facing challenges, and we want to be forward thinking. I think on the agility, when you look at what we did with Connex 2020, moving to the next year, and some of the things financially to get us steadied during the storm, we've done that. And transparent wise, I'm sure our members, if you're out there watching our team, about half our budget is invested in our national conference. And so moving that to next year was what we call a significant emotional event. But we got through that, and hopefully we're on the other side to becoming more forward thinking. And as our board talked about it financially, we started triaging the organization, saving what we could, investing in next year, hopefully through the daily grind, through things like this, through other webinars. We've kept people connected, and now moving toward this hybrid organization that we know is going to be here moving forward. And I'll end with this on more operationally on the state of the association, because we do get these questions. Currently, Connex still has about a little over 900 members, and that's nearly 300 retail multi-site members and then 600 suppliers. So we still remain certainly a formidable organization. I mentioned financially, we've taken a hit this year, but we were able, through our audit investment committee and board, to stabilize things and be ready to put on a hell of a show next year, certainly in April, and put on something probably before the end of the year. And then to give you a kind of a number on Connex 2021, right now, when you look at our exhibitors and our sponsorships, we're trending at about 85% of the level we were in 2020. And so just over halfway through the year, I think that's a great testament. And thank you so much for our sponsors and our exhibitors for being part of that. And last but not least, on each one of these, we try to announce something. Talked about being forward thinking. I think it was 2 months ago, we announced the formation of our healthcare council. One of the things we're going to do now is form what we're calling our Connex Technology Council. And it's going to be a home within Connex for our tech forward companies, whether they're serving in a whole host of ways, because we have found there's a definite community of technology companies that have a little different ecosystem. And hopefully this will be reflected in our trade show floor, in our education, in our communities, and even on our website. And the staff liaison for that couldn't be anyone better. He's Nick Marsh. He's our IT director. He knows how to talk that talk. And our other team's going to be helping Nick as well. So that's the big announcement for today. We'll wrap it up again. Thank you everyone for being part of this. We're doing this monthly to keep you connected. Thanks again, Kurt and Jacqueline and Karen and Tom. Have a great day.
Thank you all.